The river sounded angry that night. Not loud in the way storms usually are, but violent, deep, like something alive beneath the black water was, clawing at the surface, desperate to drag anything it could into the freezing current. Ethan Cole barely noticed it at first. He was exhausted. His construction shift had run 2 hours late. His babysitter had canceled again, and his 5-year-old daughter, Lily, had fallen asleep in the back seat of his old pickup with tears, stains still drying on her cheeks because he'd missed her school. Christmas concert. Again. Guilt sat heavy in his chest these days, heavy enough to make breathing feel like work. He parked near the bridge, overlooking the river because he needed a moment before carrying Lily upstairs to their tiny apartment. Just 60 seconds of silence before another night of unpaid bills, cold leftovers, and wondering how much longer he could keep failing at being both father and mother. Then he heard screaming. At first he thought it was the wind, but then came another cry. "Someone help her!" Ethan looked up sharply. A small crowd had gathered near the bridge railing. Cars were slowing. A woman was pointing frantically toward the water below, and in the middle of the river, someone was drowning. The woman surfaced for half a second, arms thrashing wildly before the current pulled her under again. Nobody moved. Phones came out. People shouted. But nobody moved. Ethan didn't think. He shoved open the truck door so fast it nearly slammed back into him. "Stay here, sweetheart," he whispered to Lily, though she was asleep. Then he ran. The icy wind cut through his jacket as he reached the railing. One glance down told him everything he needed to know. The river was moving fast. Too fast. "She'll die!" someone yelled. Ethan climbed the railing. A man grabbed his arm. "Are you crazy?" Maybe. But he couldn't stand there and watch. Not again. Because he knew what it felt like to lose someone while everyone around you did nothing. 3 years earlier, his wife had died, waiting for an ambulance after a highway accident caused by black ice. Cars had passed. People had slowed down to stare. Too few had stopped. Ethan still lived with that rage. So before fear could stop him, he jumped. The freezing water hit like concrete. Pain exploded through his body instantly, stealing the air from his lungs. The current dragged hard against him, spinning him sideways as darkness swallowed everything except distant screams above. Then he saw her. A flash of dark hair, a hand disappearing beneath the water. Ethan fought toward her with every ounce of strength left in his exhausted body. When he finally grabbed her coat sleeve, she panicked instantly, pulling both of them under. "It's okay," he gasped. "I've got you." But Tara doesn't listen to reason. She struggled violently, choking on river water, barely conscious. Ethan wrapped one arm around her and kicked hard toward the shoreline lights, though the current seemed determined to drag them somewhere far colder and darker. For one horrible second, he thought they wouldn't make it. Then hands reached down from the embankment. People pulled them out together. The woman collapsed onto the pavement, coughing violently as paramedics rushed forward. Ethan lay flat on his back beside her, shaking uncontrollably from the cold. Someone wrapped a blanket around his shoulders. "You saved her," a woman whispered tearfully. Ethan looked toward the stranger he'd pulled from the river. She looked young, maybe early 30s. Pale skin, trembling lips, eyes filled with shock and something deeper. Not fear, pain, the kind that settles into a person slowly over years, until one terrible moment finally breaks them. As paramedics loaded her into the ambulance, her gaze locked onto Ethan's. And quietly, almost too quietly to hear, she whispered, "Why would you do that for me?" Ethan didn't know how to answer. Because honestly, he didn't feel heroic. He just felt tired. 3 weeks passed. Life moved on the way it always does. Bills piled higher. Work got harder. Lily caught the flu. And Ethan nearly forgot about the woman from the river entirely. Until Christmas Eve. He was kneeling beside a broken heater in his apartment, muttering frustrated curses under his breath while Lily sat bundled in blankets on the couch. "Daddy," she whispered, "are we still having pancakes tomorrow?" He smiled despite everything. "Of course we are," even though he had exactly $12 left in his checking account. Then came a knock at the door. Ethan frowned. Nobody visited them. When he opened it, his entire body froze. The woman from the river stood there holding a small paper bag in trembling hands. She looked healthier now, warmer. Her dark hair fell softly around her shoulders, and though sadness still lingered in her eyes, something else lived there too. Hope? "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I know this is strange." Ethan stared speechlessly. "How did you find me?" "The police report," she admitted. I needed to." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Lily peeked around the corner. "Daddy, who is it?" The woman's face softened instantly, and Ethan saw something crack inside her, not painfully, tenderly. "My name's Claire," she said quietly. Lily smiled. "Hi." Claire held out the paper bag awkwardly. "I brought cookies." Lily gasped like she'd been handed treasure. And somehow, 5 minutes later, Claire was sitting at their tiny kitchen table while Lily happily explained everything about kindergarten, cartoons, and why reindeer were probably smarter than people. Ethan watched Claire carefully. There was loneliness in her smile, the kind he recognized because he carried it too. Finally, after Lily wandered off to color at the coffee table, Claire looked down at her hands. "I owe you the truth." Ethan stayed silent. "My husband died last year," she whispered. "Cancer." Pain tightened her voice instantly. He was everything. And after he was gone? She swallowed hard. "I kept pretending I was okay because everyone expected me to move forward eventually. But grief doesn't work like that." Ethan understood that more than most. "The night you found me..." Her eyes filled with tears. "I wasn't trying to survive." The apartment grew very quiet. Claire laughed weakly through tears. And then this exhausted stranger jumps into freezing water for someone he doesn't even know. Ethan rubbed a hand across the back of his neck awkwardly. Anyone would have done it. "No," she whispered. They wouldn't have, because they hadn't. That truth hung heavily between them. Claire looked around the tiny apartment, the patched furniture, the flickering lights, Lily's taped drawings on the wall, and her expression changed slowly. "You're struggling," she said softly. Ethan immediately stiffened. "We're fine." She nodded gently, understanding pride too well to push. But the next morning, Christmas Day, Ethan woke to voices outside. Confused, he opened the door and froze again. Neighbors filled the hallway carrying boxes, food, winter coats, wrapped gifts, a new heater. "What is this?" Ethan asked in disbelief. An older woman smiled warmly. "A friend of yours told us about you." Claire stood near the stairwell, nervous and uncertain. Ethan stared at her. "You did this?" She shook her head quickly. "Not just me. I shared your story online about what you did, about Lily. People wanted to help." Ethan felt emotion rise so suddenly it nearly hurt. Strangers, helping strangers, just because they could. Lily squealed happily as gifts piled around the apartment. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt something unfamiliar settle into the broken places inside him. Not relief, not happiness exactly. Something quieter. The feeling that maybe the world wasn't as cold as he'd believed. Later that night, after neighbors left and Lily fell asleep surrounded by wrapping paper and stuffed animals, Ethan stood by the apartment window, watching snow drift softly across the streetlights. Claire stepped beside him. "You gave me my life back," she said quietly. Ethan shook his head. "No, you chose to keep living. Because someone reminded me humanity still exists." He looked at her then. Really looked at her. And for the first time since losing his wife, the loneliness inside him didn't feel endless anymore. Outside, snow continued falling over the city. Soft now, gentle, nothing like the storm from the night they met. Claire smiled faintly. "Lily told me pancakes are a Christmas tradition here." Ethan laughed softly. "Yeah, they are." "Well," she said, rolling up her sleeves slightly, "good thing I know how to cook." And as the small apartment filled with warmth, laughter, and the smell of pancakes long past midnight, Ethan realized something extraordinary. Sometimes people save each other in different ways. Sometimes one act of kindness on the darkest night imaginable becomes the reason someone else learns how to live again. And sometimes, when the world feels coldest, humanity quietly finds its way home.